Talk about the developments. Joining me is Ambassador S.R. Tayal, former senior diplomat. Ambassador Tayal served in Indian missions in Sofia, Warsaw, Geneva and Moscow. He was India's Consul General in Johannesburg and Houston, and also Ambassador of India to Uzbekistan and Republic of Korea. Ambassador Tayal, good evening and welcome to DD India. Now, while there is no official draft of the peace plan available, sir, would Ukraine be willing to consider the significant concessions that are being alluded to? In the past, President Zelensky had clearly said that territorial sovereignty was not negotiable.
There are four parties to this conflict now. Russia, Ukraine are fighting it out, but behind them are also European Union or NATO minus US, and of course the United States as a separate entity. Whatever this 24-point plan supposedly contains at the behest of basically American negotiators, now even Russia has said that they are not completely in agreement with that, or it was not a part of some negotiations with them. But that seems to be the only realistic way if this war is to end in some kind of a ceasefire, at least, if not a total agreement. Because the way things are, it is 3 years are passed, and Russia, whatever its stated objectives are, it has not been able to achieve. The winter is coming, so the the lines will become more static. So till when will that keep on fighting? Ukraine has the will, it is the weaker party, but it has shown tremendous will to fight on, and it is supported by the European Union and of course NATO minus US. So if the financial resources of Europe continue to back President Zelensky and Ukrainian people are willing to continue to lay down their blood and their lives, then this war will go on, and it can go on indefinitely. So that is one possibility, but whatever President Trump's advisors or have put on the table is perhaps the only way out. I think this is a realistic way out, so that the bloodshed is stopped and some kind of an armistice is there, or some kind of cessation of hostilities is there. And ultimately, as President Trump has said repeatedly, Ukraine cannot defeat Russia. So Ukraine will ultimately have to make some territorial concessions. Why they, in what way they are called, how are they worded, will they be permanent or temporary? All this is a part of negotiations, as Prime Minister Modi has repeatedly said. This is only diplomacy, and dialogue is the way. So there has to be some kind of a dialogue, and whatever these 24 points are, because they are not yet in public domain, some kind of a sketch of a series of actions and statements has come, that perhaps it will be a drawn out process with some actions on both sides, but at least there is some piece of paper to work on, and perhaps it will take a lot of time, but there must be negotiations, and whatever is the piece of paper or 24 points which have been drafted by the American interlocutors.
Ambassador Tayal, the American side does refer to tough concessions to be made on both sides, Ukraine and Russia. Given the present situation, to what extent has Russia been able to achieve the objectives with which President Putin entered into this conflict?
Putin's advisor said that President Putin, of course, has repeatedly said that the root causes must be addressed. And the root causes are two: security of Russia and welfare of the Russian-speaking people in Ukraine. Now, so the security would mean that Ukraine does not join NATO, and it does not arm itself so much that it can pose a threat to Russia. All these things are very vague and very negotiable. But ultimately, any war will end either in the total defeat of one side or some kind of a compromise where both sides will have to give and take. But at present, it seems that, of course, it is very clear that neither Ukraine can defeat Russia, and Russia, despite its efforts, full efforts, has not been able to really defeat Ukraine. So the war is likely to drag on, and Russian, perhaps my thing is that Russia should not maximize its demands, and wherever they are, they should agree to some kind of a standstill or a kind of ceasefire, because it is putting a lot of pressure on their friends like India. We are also being caught in the crossfire. And otherwise, this war will just go on with no victory either to Russia or to Ukraine. I mean,
Right.
tremendous loss of life and property and damage to the entire international community's peace and prosperity.
Right. And sir, finally, how much influence are European leaders likely to have in Trump's peace plan? What will be their priorities in this conflict?
Their statements have been very clear that they will not let Ukraine's sovereignty to be harmed in any way. That really means that they are urging Ukraine to fight on. Now, today a report has come that 1,000 bodies of unfortunate Ukrainians have been returned by Russia to Ukraine, 1,000 young Ukrainians. So how long can Ukraine fight? It is, of course, for President Zelensky and his cabinet and the people of Ukraine to decide. But Europe, in my view, is fighting a war with Russia with the blood of Ukraine, but it is for the people of Ukraine to decide how far will they go with this, which does not have any end in sight. How can Ukraine defeat Russia? It is unimaginable. It is unthinkable. So what are they fighting for? And there has to be some kind of give and take, and only then this bloodshed will stop. But European Union is in no mood to compromise, and as long as they continue to finance and continue to buy arms from United States to supply to Ukraine, then this war will go on, and there is no end in sight. And then President Trump will also not be able to pressurize either Russia or the European Union to come to a compromise or some kind of at least cessation of hostilities before negotiations go on.
On that note, Ambassador S.R. Tayal, thank you very much for joining us on NewsHour, sharing your perspective.